So I would like to have a session where we will be interactive because this is a topic quite new to me as well, and to many of you. Some of you know LLMs better than me, like most probably. So I want to treat this not as me speaking, but rather as us sharing thoughts and probably building a better world. Why not? Or a more functioning world, at least. Okay, so I believe it's time to start with the slides. This presentation was prepared for lasting 30 minutes, so it's just 30 minutes of slides. That's why I'm going to take it more slow, and because I presented this in the past at the conference, you will see it, and because I want to give space to everyone to share their opinion. So it would be great. You can jump in if you have a question. You can raise your hand, and Alex will probably, because I will not see it because I will be in presentation mode, but maybe Alex will say, hey, Francesco, we have a question. So if you really feel like jumping in and not waiting until the end of the presentation, at the live conference, this would have not been possible, but today we do have time for that. So I encourage you to jump in if you feel that it's going to be interesting for everyone. Right, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start the slides. Okay, Data Vault User Group. So thank you for organizing this. The title of today's chat is SQL with LLMs, Large Language Models, Chat with Your Data. This is a Data Vault User Group from the UK, and it's a virtual meeting. And we will know more things. I will for sure learn a few things by the end of this meeting. So about me, I work in the last mile of data analytics. I've been a consulting in data analytics for hundreds of years now. And I always focus on the last mile, and I stress it every time, and especially now, because I really feel like my mission is to enable business users. I have noticed that many books of data warehousing, and not only, and also the Data Vault book, they speak about business users, meaning that actually they don't speak about business users at all. They speak about end users, meaning that the end users are the SQL programmers. So when you design a data warehouse, your mindset, at least from literature, is that you are building something that will be for an audience of people who are able to write SQL language. But business users are not able to write SQL language. So there is a gap between a data warehouse and actual business users who want to access information. And that's how data analytics has always been, at least since I started in 2001. So it means that when a business user wants to have access to some information, they need to raise a request to open a ticket. They need to wait a few weeks, and then at last someone will have developed the report or the dashboard that has been requested, and the business users will see the information. When then they want to see a small variation, they will need to open a second ticket, and they will need to wait maybe only just 1 or 2 weeks, and they will have this amendment of the first report. So it's slow. It's a process that is very slow, and there is the middleman. So business users are here, data warehouse is here, and there is a middleman who needs to facilitate that. So that was not working very well during all the years of data analytics, the classic way. And I wrote a book a few years ago called The Unified Star Schema. I had the honor to write this book with Bill Inmon, the father of data warehousing. So with the Unified Star Schema, I wanted to create, and I did create, a very nice and working solution that facilitates the dialogue between business users and data. So the Unified Star Schema acts like the middleman. When you have the Unified Star Schema, for more than 90% of the questions that you have, you can directly use the Unified Star Schema, and the answers are already prepared in that data structure. So it's a very flexible structure that somehow can accommodate most of the questions. Why do I mention this now? Because now everyone is talking about the LLMs. And I'm saying, wait a minute. So I was doing so much effort to build a structure that will accommodate the business users' questions. without the need of the middleman. And now with the LLMs, what happens? So yeah, of course, LLMs could read a structure that is a unified star schema. That would definitely work. But unified star schema, many people have heard about it, but so far it hasn't been implemented so much. So typically data today is organized in data marts that are in a data warehouse, and someone accesses them either directly with SQL or with a business intelligence tool or a dashboard that is querying the data warehouse through this metadata layer that is built in between. But now with the LLMs, things are changing. So LLMs don't speak with the BI tools, don't read dashboards. LLMs go directly to your database. So LLMs are supposed to write SQL for you. And so you are supposed to chat with your data, as the title of this presentation. So can we chat with our data? Can we actually say, please tell me the revenue of my company in the past 10 years and have an answer that is correct? So this is what we are going to discuss today. So this is a rerun of a past presentation. So we did it in, actually, let me see if I can put the pointer, just a moment. So present the views, pointer options, laser pointer, okay. So in September, so a few months ago, we had this beautiful conference in this beautiful location in London, the Royal Holloway University of London. And so we all gathered there for 2 days, and we had presentations of 30 minutes. So now that same presentation, as I told you, is widened, so we have more space for talking. So the question that we want to answer is, can we chat with our database today? What is your experience? And here I'm already starting to reduce to icon my presentation, because I would like to use a few minutes even to listen to your voice and to hear from you. What is your experience? Have you done this? Have you played around with the LLMs, chatting with your data? And does it work? Does it sort of work? I have my opinion, but before sharing that, I would like to hear yours. So I need someone brave who can be the first to raise their hand
I can go.
and tell me their story. Yeah,
I was my experience is pretty bad actually. Even
pretty
with
bad. Okay.
even with smaller data tables, or even complicated data sets, just even smaller data tables, meaning a few hundred rows, it just comes up with fake data, fake numbers. It completely just. I mean, it took me a bit of time to realize, even though I knew it would be possible, but not that much. It was 30 to 40% rework, and so the effort of going through everything myself, etc., is so high that I prefer to go back to my old Python and SQL. It's way quicker, way quicker.
Okay,
So
Will, nice to meet you. Don't call it a fake data. You have to be more kind. You have to call it hallucination. So with the word hallucination, we are forgiving LLMs and we are saying, yeah, it's fine. It's a hallucination. So, okay, thank you for the first feedback. And yeah, it's I'm of course saying it ironically. So let's see if there is someone who has feedback. Maru, maybe?
Yeah, that one was what, Maru. I'm Will.
Okay.
Hello.
Sorry.
Likewise, my experience of LLMs on data has been patchy. I'm working a lot with the more strategic elements of the business, and they are very shaky about how much money they want to spend on an LLM.
Okay.
Meaning that they don't want to even think about LLMs unless somebody can prove ROI, which you can't do unless you go and invest in time and space with your LLM. And that's a kind of hard catch-22 for me. So I'm interested to hear other people's experimentation with it.
Okay.
I can add my experience in this. So I've been trying using like LLM. I was trying to vectorize the data, but like the first person said, it was hallucinating. So I understood that it doesn't understand JSON nodes properly. So what I understood that's a wrong approach to just give it the data and work on it. So instead of that, like convert the like normal NLP language text to SQL first, and then query the SQL and get the data. So that's what I understood. Like, so if someone wants to get the data, you need to make it understand, like, this is the table, this is the schema, this is the description, and then I need this answer. Can you give me the data from this business date? That it'll just give you the SQL query and you'll get the data after that.
Okay. Okay. Very valid feedback. Thank you very much. Poya, I don't know how to say your name. So yeah, so basically we are seeing at the moment 3 out of 3 saying it doesn't work. Let's be frank.
I can also vouch for that. Fourth person here. Just to add, there's also a problem about syntax. Sometimes it just hallucinates and makes up UDF functions where it doesn't exist. Sometimes I would think, hey, this cannot be true because I've used this database for a long time. This function doesn't exist, but in LLM world, it exists.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. So I think with 4 feedbacks, I already have a pretty much a clear idea, a perception of how other people experience is. So thank you as well. Yeah. So I'm seeing also that there is some other comments written, but I think it's enough for the moment. So thank you. I continue with the slides, and well, so you are strengthening my point. My point is that we need to make an effort. So apparently everyone seems to be agree with me that we need to do something to make it better. All right, so what context should we provide to our LLM? Okay, so when we are asking our question to the LLM, as you know, we should provide some context. So we don't just ask a question, but that is the same thing as humans. So you can say, what was the thing you said 2 days ago? I mean, tell me more context. Like I said many things, so be more specific. So LLMs are the same, so they behave pretty much like humans. So basically, when you're asking a question, you need to give more element. So a context poor LLM prompt, I guess I should pointer option, I should allow it again. Yeah, okay. So when you are asking a question like what was our yearly revenue in the past 10 years, that is poor of context. So I suppose this is written by me, of course. My friend, I have no idea. Tell me more. So I make the example of ChatGPT, but LLMs, there are many others as well. While instead, if you have a contextualized LLM prompt and you ask what was the revenue in the past 10 years, and you give all these additional pieces of information, then you will probably have like an answer, like based on the provided context, the revenue in the past year was, and blah, blah, blah. So this is what we are trying to search during this presentation, all the elements of context that should be given. And again, we have a new brainstorming now, so I'm gonna pause again because I would like to hear from you. And this does not need to be necessarily what you already are doing, but it's a brainstorming. So what do you think that people are doing today to add more context, and what do you think that people should add to this? So let's give it again a few minutes because I'm very, very curious to hear it from you guys.
I can go very quickly again. Yes, it has to be. Every call I make to any API, no matter where it's hosted, I have to pull up a context again and feed it with the query. Reminds me of my first reactions 13, 14 years ago to looking at how blockchain operated and thinking to myself as a software engineer, this is the dumbest thing I've seen in my life because it's so inefficient. And that made me miss a lot of money because it was not about efficiency, it was about something else, resilience and immutability and other properties. Same thing here. It's just so crazy the amount of data I have to send every time to get an answer. It would be, anyway, I'm going to stop here, but you get my point. But that's how it works. Yeah, without context, what are you going to get? You're going to get just crap back.
Okay, but while you still have the microphone on, can you share what should be added, like an idea?
I'm sorry, share what should we do, you mean?
Yeah, we need to give context. So, for example, what?
Oh, okay. So in my case, mostly it's the history of a discussion, the past history of the discussion, plus some additional dictionaries that I use. For example, some allowed topics to talk about, or some references to some hyperlinks to reference, or some topics not to talk about, not to answer about.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Aru.
Maybe I can share something. So I have actually never tried it, but we are using Oracle and we are rolling the latest version. And actually it comes with that capabilities on the SQL Plus prompt. And it's using all the dictionary views, and you can increase the precision if you add comments at table and columns level. And
Very good. Just
so
that
we have tried a few, predefined queries where, of course, it worked, but I have never done extensive tests on that feature.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Anyone else? In the meantime, I want to tell you, John, that I agree with you, and you will see in one of my next slides, I have the same comment. Anyone else? Oh, you're very shy. Actually, this is the hot topic. So when I also presented this in another event, and I had a couple of comments like you should give the financial statement of the company. And I was very surprised to hear this because I didn't know how that can help at all. So I'm really now hungry for more ideas because guys, let's put it this way. You are an employee, very experienced employee in a new company. You were hired yesterday and you have 20 years of experience. So you arrive and they ask you, what is the revenue of our company of the past 10 years? You as a human, what do you say? What context? You say, tell me more or give me more. You would probably say, give me access to your data, give me a week. I will work on the data. I will try to understand things on my own, and then I will tell you, right? I'm seeing that there are comments. Okay, I'm not doing an exhaustive answer to all the comments as well because they are harder to handle. That's why I prefer voice, so everyone is on the same page.
As a person who deals a lot with metadata management, probably the first thing I'm going to say is, are you one of the rare unicorns of companies that might, by very little chance, have any documentation whatsoever on your database?
Okay, yeah, very fair point. But in case it is among all the possible, let's say it's a unicorn, like the best company in the world. So what is your wish list? The first 3 pieces of metadata that you would say, give me that because it's gonna help the LLM.
That would entirely depend on what the question was, but your question from your slides was, what's your summated revenue over the last 10 years? Where's your financial data and where's the column that holds revenue or incoming transactions or something like that?
Okay. And by the way, yeah, and I agree with you, but this opens a very important topic, which again is one in one of the next slides. Are we going to give access to the real data? So when we use an LLM that is internal, probably we do, but are you going to give the username and password to ChatGPT so that we can pass all the company data to ChatGPT?
I mean,
No.
that entirely depends whether or not you've got a good security setup or not. I'd probably put it
No,
on
we
the
should not.
specific service user account, but there we go.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think ChatGPT or any external service would probably make use of this data for other queries from other customers. It's sort of multi-tenant in that sense, I think. So I would refrain from giving financial data or any confidential information
Exactly.
to external services, irrespective of what sort of security is built into the system.
Exactly. So I agree with you, at least. So I would say that when we are, the title of this presentation is Chat with Your Data, Produce SQL. So the assumption is that we are using an external model. So it's not owned internally by the company. Hence, we should not give the data externally because data is confidential. So the whole point here is that you should use these LLMs without giving them access to the data. So you need to tell them how your data is. Otherwise, LLM cannot do it because it cannot see it. Anyone more? Or we go, or I move forward?
Yeah, actually, it is forbidden for companies that are listed to put their financials outside. except for the official publications. That's one. And the second is how on earth does an LLM understand what the revenue exactly should be for that company? I wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too specific.
Exactly. And I'm also reading here what you mean by revenue definition before tax or after tax. There is a slide on this. So I better now move on with the slides. Description of tables, description of columns, primary key, foreign key. So Jean, exactly, I like that a lot. What if we give a schema and ask for a query? Give schema is a very nice comment, in my opinion. We don't need to give data to LLM, just a schema plus descriptions to generate SQL queries. I like this, Joseph. So basically the idea is we want the LLM to produce the SQL, and then we use that SQL to query our internal database. So I agree totally with you, Joseph. Ahmed, oh, sorry, I'm scrolling back. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to read comments like on the fly like that. Plus because it's also jumping. If you're hosting LLM, then you can give us. Yeah, exactly. I agree. If you're hosting it, you can give it. Otherwise, you should not give access to the data. Okay, I'm gonna stop here because this reading chat is not ideal. I had a lot of inputs, so thank you very much for that. And now I go on with the slides. I'll go a bit faster because now I've collected a lot of opinions and it was really, really precious for me. So thank you for that. So yes, yeah. The first thing that I would do, I would add the DDL, data definition language. So someone wrote this. So basically, in the moment at the beginning, when we created the data warehouse, we created these tables. So this way, the LLM knows that there is a table called sales, and this table has a column called sales ID, sales date, sales client. So these are words in English, and the LLMs, especially if you also combine with other tools like LangChain, basically the interpretation of language is a very important step because there is a step of understanding the meaning of the name of a column. So now the LLM knows that there are these columns called this way, and you also know if they are textual or date or numeric with comma and so on. So decimal, yeah. So this is super important. I think a few people wrote this. Tables, columns, and also data types. They are useful. Then access to your actual data, as we discussed before, it would help, but I do not recommend it, especially as someone wrote, if it's internal, it's fine, but don't give access to your data, username and password to an external service. We all agree. Constraints. So now I will give you now 6, 7, 8, 9 more proposals of what I think that should be very important to give to the LLM. One is about the constraints. Someone wrote it, PK, FK, and yeah, and there's a difference. So here what you see is an example of constraints on Snowflake, which by the way are fake. So the constraints on Snowflake are just information, but they are not enforced. But other databases like Oracle, they did enforce them. But basically, alter table clients add foreign key, client country ID, references countries. So basically, you're saying that clients will join with countries through client country ID on one side and country ID on the other. So this is an example of 2, 4, 6, 7 joins that you do between tables. That's great. It's a useful piece of information. In modern databases, they are less and less popular, like Snowflake, but there is another problem that is even bigger than this. Constraints are not the same thing as joins. In this case, they are. So we have seen 2, 4, 6, 7 constraints, and there will be 7 joins identical to this. And that's fine. But there are usually more constraints than joins, and you will see it in a minute. In that case, the LLM has to make its own decision. So constraint is almost always a valid join, but sometimes when you have 2 tables, you can also do one join between 2 tables, and you have more options for the same pair of tables. The large language model needs to choose one of these options. So the data model, as you see, this is an image. So the question is, are we allowed to pass an image to LLMs? I guess at the beginning we were not. Now with the more recent versions, LLMs are learning to read data models. So this is an example that gives us a lot of information, because now I know, especially, again, that's all discussion I have all the time with everyone. To me, the arrow that connects two tables should not only say that sales connects to clients, but the position of the arrow should be exactly on the line where you have the foreign key. Sales client points to client ID. Product supply points to supplier ID. So the graphics would help, because it has not only that two tables are joining, but it gives also the foreign key, which normally is missing in most database engines that I've seen in my life. But not in all. Some do it, but mostly there are not. So are we allowed to pass an image? Yeah, if we are able to pass an image, the LLM can probably gather this information. But a human would understand that here the arrow is positioned in the right point of the table, so it highlights what the foreign key is. Oh, by the way, I don't have the pointer option, so I was pointing all the time without you to see. So for example, sales client is here and client ID is here. So by seeing that the position is here, the LLM is supposed to understand that sales client is the foreign key. And that's the challenge, because of course I don't know if the LLM actually can do that. And we need to specify how to join. So here is an example: order headers and customers. And you have a column called sold to, another column called bill to, another column called shipped to. So this is an example where we have three constraints, but only one of them is a valid join. So typically sold to is the one that you join with customers, but that's the most probable, let's say. But there are cases when you want to join these two tables by bill to. So you want to know if you send something, you ship it to someone, but you bill it to a different division of the company. So they are all three valid constraints, but only one of them can be used as a join, only one at a time. So different departments may prefer different joins. And this is an example where we need the context. So are LLMs able to come back with a question when multiple options exist? I don't think so. What LLMs do, they say, okay, there are three foreign keys that can be used, but statistically sold to is the one that is used the most. So I'll go for that, if they have these statistics, of course.
Right.
So it means, okay, just let me finish. It means that there will be a choice to make, and bill to and ship to are less likely to be used. Yeah, someone is speaking?
Very shortly, the LLMs might be able to come up with questions. You just need to find the right way to pre-prompt them to do that. So basically, whenever you start an interaction, you have to use the same script again to prime it, so that you got it. And still, it might not do it. There is no guarantee. It's not deterministic at all.
It's not deterministic. This is the phrase of the day.
I mean, it is. Sorry. I mean, there is a network, but you know what I mean by that. I mean, it is. Yes.
No, I agree. I agree that it's not deterministic. That's usually the phrase that is being said, and that's you know it by experience. You ask the same question twice, and you have slightly different answers. So I agree that it's not deterministic. I was not ironic. Okay, so now I need to move a bit faster. So thanks for the answer. So yeah, good to know that LLMs are able to come back with a question, but it's not really under our control. And honestly, I want to be in control. So I want to know when the LLM will notice that there are three options, and someone has to choose. And I want to be the one choosing. I don't want the LLM making the choice instead of me. And things can be more complicated. This is an example of three tables that are connected like that. So we have 3, 5, 6, 7 constraints, but you can only use 2 of them. So you need to make a choice. Constraints and joins are 2 different things. Joins are typically a subset of the constraints. Aliases and multipaths is another topic. So look, you have sales, you have clients, countries. So you have a table called countries, but you use it twice because you have the clients, but you also have the products. The products are coming from a supplier, and the supplier is coming from a country. So the same table that is in the database that is like that, you have 2 tables converging to countries, because it's a table that makes a list of countries and it can be useful in multiple points. What happens is that you, in a business intelligence tools, you alias it and you call it countries of clients or countries of supplier, and the one called supplier is connected to supplier, and the one called country is connected to country. So this is what you have today in business intelligence. So countries and regions in a BI tool can be aliased, but in a database with just constraints, the LLM will see them like this. So that's, no one has prepared, Alice is making the this pre-work saying countries should be used twice in different ways. So the LLM will see it like this. So is it going to work? What path is the LLM going to choose if you say sales by country? Well, most probably when we say sales by country, we mean the country of the client. But if I want to see the sales amount by the country of the supplier, how do I say it to the LLM? How do I build the correct SQL? So I'm giving a lot of questions, and the implicit answer to all these questions is that we should establish a dialogue with the LLMs that allows a space for putting all this context in a structured way. So my bottom line here is that instead of just chatting with the LLM, we should have a file that is provided from our IT department that gives all the metadata information, and that would cover most of the things. But I think like this should be passed somehow. So I'm not giving a solution here. I'm just raising your attention to a problem, and I do have a few ideas on how to solve them. But again, this is a brainstorming. Definition of measures. Someone was saying that in the previous session of brainstorming. Yeah, what is the, now, for example, if I want to see the, if I look at this table, I see that I have the quantity, the price, and the discount, and also the tax. So this is a database that some of you may know very well. It's the Snowflake sample data. It's called TPCH, and it's a typical example that many of you are familiar with. So there is not a column called sales amount, but we as humans, we understand that if that column is not available, well, we still have the quantity, the unit price, and the discount. So basically, what is the sales amount? Well, it can be sum of quantity by price multiplied by 1 minus the discount, because the discount is in percentage, is in decimal format, and you should do 1 minus that. So, and that would be the gross revenue. But then there is also the net revenue, because there is also the information about the tax. So the point is, where do we store the definitions of measures? Because a semantic layer, like now I'm collaborating with Cube in California, and they do have the mindset, and the whole point of a semantic layer is exactly to make these definitions and make them available for a BI tool to say, okay, now I see what you mean by gross revenue and net revenue, because that's the place where you put the definition. But is an LLM able to take this definition, know where to find it, and use it to build the SQL? Then also definition of dimensions. What is an employee? It can be select employee ID, employee name from employees, but maybe you have to just take the ones that are flagged as valid, or maybe by employee we only mean the perm employees. Some people may say, okay, you also need to be sure that they are not expired employees. So the definition of an employee niche should be typically in a data dictionary. So do we have that unicorn company, as someone said earlier, that has a perfect data metadata? I don't know, normally not. So we should have that data, that metadata. We should have one main definition of employee and other definitions of employee that include also the external employee type. So you need a data dictionary, and you need the LLM to be able to browse a data dictionary. So it's not obvious. And so where do we store these definitions? So they can be in a data dictionary. They can also be in the semantic layer, as I said earlier. So this is a topic that should be in the context. Then column name metadata. So look at this table T005T. What does it represent? Can be, I guess, it's probably a table representing clients, but this is probably a table from SAP, but it's definitely not a name, when you see it, a name that you would recognize. So you need, and also think about customer and client. Are they synonyms? Most time, yes. Sometimes maybe no. Or product, part, or item, are they synonyms? Most probably yes. So does an LLM know all businesses? So is an LLM able to understand from this, understand like a human does, that this is a table that represents a client or a customer? Maybe yes, but it would be better to pass it as an explicit piece of metadata that says, as someone said earlier, this table T005T represent the clients, which are, by the way, the same thing as a customer. So if someone types customer, you should go to take T005T. So we need to pass this metadata to the LLM. We need to pass the context. Does LLM know all businesses? Well, yeah, if it's an e-commerce, LLMs understand e-commerce. If it's a hospital, an LLM probably understands a hospital and is expecting that there will be a table called patient, a table called doctor, a table called visit, a table called hospitalization. But what if once I looked for weird businesses, I looked up on the internet and I found a business called edible shoes. Edible shoes. Sorry, in events, I try also to be a bit entertaining. I found another business called potato parcel. And I found another business called Hire Goats. So what is potato parcel? Potato parcel writes custom messages on potatoes, and delivers them to the recipient of your choice. Nothing says love like a potato you can't eat because it's been written on. So this is a business that I didn't know before looking it up on the internet. By the way, if you're curious, this is the URL where I found, so you can find all the list of weird businesses. So why did I do this? Because we cannot rely on the fact that an LLM recognizes what business my organization is doing. So we need to pass a textual information saying, hey, ChatGPT, this is my business. I write on potatoes. I'm sorry. I know you find it stupid, but I write on potatoes. So with this information, you pass the whole text, this text, and then the LLM maybe will say, okay, you are weird, but now I understand more about your business, and I will be able to write a better SQL. Go back to more serious topics. Type of join. So this is a query, select product from sales, join products, and there's an inner join. So what if I want to see the unsold products too? So most of you know SQL, and when you do an inner join, you will have as a result that typically all the products that were never sold do not appear in the result that is returned by the query. So you will only see the products that have been sold at least once in that query with those conditions. So if I want to see the unsold products, what should I do? You all know that you should do something like a right join or a full outer join, or in a way where also this product number 4 appears with sales amount equals null or 0. So difficult. So how can a business user obtain this result when chatting with an LLM? So if I say as a human, I am a business user, I don't know what a right join is. So if I say, if I type as a human, or soon it will be with the voice, I also want to see the unsold products. Is the LLM able to understand that it should use a right join or a full outer join? And by the way, which one of the two and why is not obvious. So this is another thing that should be addressed, and there should be in this structure of the query that is passed, the query that the human is asking from the LLM, it should also be passed this type of metadata. I want to see all the products, also the unsold products. And then overall filters. So I work in the retail division of a company, and I ask, show me the sales amount by year. And this happened to me. I was working at Giorgio Armani many years ago. It was in 2001. Giorgio Armani, they do clothes, but they have a computer, so they have a database. And I was working in the business intelligence department, and it happened to me that someone says, I want to see the sales by year, and I did the query, and I said, but this is much bigger than my figures. Retail doesn't sell that. And I said, okay, you only want to see the sales of retail. And he said, of course, I work in the retail department. And I was new, and I said, sorry, I didn't know. You should have told me. You should have given me the context. So this is the query that this user would expect. Select blah, 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 where sales type equals R, for example, which stands for retail. Is an LLM going to be able to do that? Because my point here is that LLMs today, when you see videos, I was just watching a couple of videos before this call. All the demos are based on super simple examples. But if we want this problem to be solved, we need to have this type of problems addressed the proper way. And for each of these, I do have a proposal, and I'm going to play around this with some friends that are also in the call, like Marcin. I'm still in the call, right? Yeah. You know, once I did a conference, I was speaking for half an hour, just me alone in the room, because my internet connection went down. Am I there with you?
You are here,
Yes.
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 I didn't waste 10 minutes of my life speaking on my own. Wonderful. I have to continue because there's still a few things to say. So I would need this. And the R stands for retail. For a human can be obvious. For a LLM can be less obvious, but especially it should be the translation, I mean retail, although I didn't tell you. So that's the step that is missing. So the context is also an invitation to users to be a bit less egocentric. I don't know you. I don't know that you only want retails. If you don't tell me, you will have also wholesale. So this is also a step that the user has to make to establish a dialogue with the LLMs. Otherwise, if you think that LLM can read your business card that is like your badge that is hanging on you and then is taking that information, well, that's not going to happen. Business users often forget to communicate this context to traditional BI developers, as I was. They will do the same with LLMs. Okay. Point in time. This is a techie thing that we are in a Data Vault conference, so you all know exactly what this means. I want to see a type 2 slowly changing dimension as of June 10, 2021, just to say a random date. Well, it means that you are querying a table and you, okay, I should add the pointer as usual, and you should put this condition and June between valid from valid to. How do I pass this information to the LLM? So yeah, I should be first of all aware that there is a table with changed data capture, which is not obvious for business users. And I should be able to say to the LLM, I only want to see the data as of June 2021. June 10th, it needs to be a day. And so I want to see the attributes that were true on that day. Well, that's not going to happen. So this is too far away. It's not going to happen. Are LLMs going to write a between clause? Maybe they are able to write this between clause in SQL, but all these steps where the business user needs to know that it's a table with the repetitions of the same business key with different time ranges, that's not going to happen. So in any case, you need to accept that this thing will only work if we somehow simplify it. So forget about giving slowly changing dimensions to business users. It's not going to happen. And finally, my favorite topic. Do LLMs understand fun traps? So you may wonder why I have this picture of this lady. It's a photo that is also on the book that I published, the Unified Star Schema, because the fun is what matters. Are they able to know to prevent fun traps? So what is a fun trap? A fun suggests the idea of spreading, okay? Imagine that you send an invoice to your customer and it's 100 euros. A fun trap takes a measure and spreads it into multiple copies. So you send an invoice of 100 euros, but your customer has 12 email addresses. You join it by mistake with a table called emails, and your 100 euros now becomes 12 times 100 euros. That's what a fun trap is. So can LLMs prevent this? I tried that. So I went to ChatGPT and I wrote this code and I wrote this question. There is not the question. Basically, I asked, show me the sales amount and the shipment amount by client. That's what I asked. And ChatGPT said, you can retrieve the sales amount and shipment amount by client using SQL join query that aggregates the data by client. Here is how you can do it. And this, there is a group by shipments, no, group by sales client. That looks good. But now I'm asking you a question. The syntax is correct, but the semantic is wrong. Do you agree with this? So the return numbers do not match the data source. This is what I believe. Do you know why is that? Do you know why this is not? So ChatGPT gave this SQL. If you run it, it gives a result. But what happens is that because you should know that one row of cells can have multiple shipments, well, the row of cells that contains a number gets repeated, and that number gets duplicated, exactly as you see in this fun. In this case, if the shipment, if that row of sales was done in 5 shipments, you will have 5 repetitions of the same number of the sales amount. So that number, sales amount, is the one that is in danger of being duplicated. The shipment amount is not in danger because there is a one-to-many relationship and shipments is in the many side. So the one that is in trouble is the number that is in the one side of the relationship. So let's run it. If you run this query against the database, you see these numbers. You don't know my data, so you cannot say if that is right or wrong. But look what I did. I commented out the join. So look at this number, Bill, Francesco, 500, 1400. Okay. So now I comment this, and I have Bill, Francesco, it's 300 and 1100. So it's the same query where I comment out that total shipment amount and the join. So it gives different numbers. How can it be? Yeah, because this is a query that should not be done. It's a fun trap. It gives incorrect numbers. I wrote an entire book about it. So this way we get the correct figures, but I tried, and as you see, this was produced by ChatGPT. So with the poor context that I gave, ChatGPT didn't care, didn't say, wait a minute, Francesco, you are joining 2 tables in a one-to-many relationship and both contain numbers, so the one on the one side will be duplicated. It didn't do that because ChatGPT is learning from humans, and humans are making this mistake. So I had the proof that also ChatGPT makes this mistake. So here's the conclusion. Let me see the time, 6:52. Okay, sorry, I am in a time zone different from Central Europe. So we should pass the LLMs a lot of additional information. So context 1, context 2, context 3, I don't know how many there were, probably 10 contexts, different contexts. So then most of this information, sorry, close this. Most of this information, fortunately, can be provided by the IT department because it is independent from the specific business question. So all the description about potato parcel is a thing that is ready there. So you just upload it. So I imagine that the IT department of a company should prepare all the things that are independent from the question, like the data definition language, all the descriptions about the columns, the rows, the joins, all these things are technical and they are always true. But then when there is a choice to make, LLMs should ask the user. It's a long way. So my message today is not, I have solved all these problems. My message today to you is, all these things should be taken into account. I have in mind the structure of a JSON that is passing all these parameters together with an additional text file, and with Marcin and with the other friends in the future weeks, I will work and I will have fun trying to see if that improves the quality of the query. But it's not quality, it's either correct or incorrect. And whenever the example is super simple, you have chances to have the correct number. But whenever you have one of these scenarios that I've shown to you today, the chances are that numbers will be incorrect, and the percentage of probability is close to 90%. This is the end of my presentation, and we still have a few minutes, so I suppose that some of you wants to say something.
I have a question. Why don't you take other queries as examples? I'm like, if I come as an external consultant to a new company, I never ever get all this description in detail. But I can have a look at other queries, other reports, and from them I can derive new changed reports.
I agree with you. So my opinion is that this can help, but it's a long way to go. And especially some queries are specific. You remember the ship to, sold to, bill to. Someone wanted to join orders and clients or customers with the bill to, but I want to know it by sales, not by finance. So even queries from other users may have joins that are correct in the context of their question, but they are not correct in the context of my question. So it can help, but we need something more structured. There is my opinion is that we need something more structured in the way we pass the context, because passing a mountain of it's like you pass me a lot of books and then I'm able to write a book. Yeah, that still works, because a book can never be wrong, but you cannot pass me a lot of calculations and then I make the calculation that you have in mind. You need to be specific to tell me what calculation you want. You don't need, if the approach is as it is, that LLMs are copying what they have seen before, well, we are going to the wrong direction, because it means that we all want to ask the same question. And I hope we will never reach that point in humanity where for each topic there is just one type of question to ask. But that's my opinion. Someone else?
Just a remark on the very last slide, your conclusion slide, but also on what you just said. Yes, that is exactly the fallacy of using and building an LLM, is you will converge towards whatever is the norm and the highest likelihood answer or even question. And that means if the norm is mediocrity or any kind of mistake, that will be the maximum vehicle to spread it absolutely everywhere to anybody who's not aware of it. That is the perfect carrying agent, basically, for any biological weapon, you know.
Agreed. It will absolutely go to whatever the latest meme is, and if that meme is wrong, you've still got that.
Yes, that's the thing. And the last conclusion slide, you said being able to. The last bullet point was the LLM should ask me if there's multiple options. Well, there's always billions of options it goes through, and it never asks you. That's the thing with them. That's why they have additional layers. And some of the test versions or some of the future versions, in some of the tools, at least GPT-4o does that from time to time. It offers you 2 options to choose from, but it's pretty random. It's for testing, sometimes split testing. If you want to do that, that's actually my comment. That's the only valuable thing I want to say, I think, is you need an algorithmic layer on top where you have a workflow through which you build multiple different queries, and then you look at the multiple different answers. That's the thing that people are doing, long chain orchestration, for example. But again, if you try to explain that to your managers or the people deciding about the money, they're incapable of seeing the value in it. You never get an okay. So either you have to do it or not. Yeah.
If you went to your manager and you said, I want a long chain orchestration, I don't know what is the background of your manager, but it could be that most probably he did not understand what you're talking about, or maybe he did. But even that, in my opinion, again, it's a good input. So really, thank you very much for that. But we are still missing a point. If I have a precise question and they know what I want, which is often not the case, but those times when I really know what I want and I want to ask that question, I believe that even a long chain orchestration would not be sufficient, because you really need to say what you want, not all the possible combinations, because then it's too much stuff. So when I speak to a human, it's already tough enough. So how many business users have been disappointed by their dialogue with the IT? Come on, let's be honest. So how can we possibly think that with LLMs it will be less frustrating? They will probably not be as arrogant as the guys of the IT crowd TV series. They will not say, have you tried turning off and turning on again? But ultimately, they will not give you the answer that you need. They will do it in a nicer way. But if we don't learn to be specific on the question that we have in mind and pass the parameters that specify what we want, there's no chance that the artificial intelligence will read our brain. So otherwise, the next step is that we are waiting for the Elon Musk brain implant, but even that will not work. We must make an effort. We must be specific. We must build a framework of communication that includes most of the things. And we must, in my opinion, give up some of the things. Point in time, too difficult, and other things. So we need to narrow down the domain of the options that a SQL developer has. And if we want to give this to business users, because that's really what I care about, we should really simplify the database that we are querying. It was true with traditional data analytics, and it's true also with the LLMs.
No, of course. That's a completely different topic. What I was mentioning was just referring to your bullet point saying it would be awesome if it comes back to me with options, but it's just not the way it runs. However, there is
Yeah.
ways to achieve the same thing. Again, I'm not talking about what you were talking about just now. There is no way going around learning how to properly engage with that technology. But only answering the point of getting multiple answers, there is ways to do the equivalent thing, which is fine tuning. So when you fine tune, and that doesn't just hold for the domain, the vertical, so SQL, etc., but also for the application domain. So fine tuning is a very different approach to training those models than RAGs and stuff like that. It requires longer time, preparation, so you have to know what your intention is to teach it, but then you will get far better results. If you just look at the books on fine tuning, the dedicated methods for that.
Okay, tonight I think I will fall asleep thinking about long chain orchestration and fine tuning. So thank you, Maru, for this input. Anyone else? I guess I don't know, Alex. Of course, we are now past the hour, but I'm still there for a few minutes.
I have a quick answer, question, if you mind. So I've been working on this topic last year, and one of the benchmarks that I read about is called BIRD benchmark. So it's composed of 30,000 text to SQL questions from written by humans from 100 databases from the real world. So it's talking about sports, about industry and stuff from 40 different domains. And are you familiar with this benchmark? Because today the human performance is 90% on this benchmark, and the AI performance is 70%. But between November 2023 and November 2024, AI went from 54% of accuracy to 70% of accuracy. So maybe in the next months, it's going to reach the accuracy of humans. And I just wanted to know if you are familiar with this, and do you have any opinion about it?
No, me personally with the benchmark, no, but that was the whole point. So I was happy to have this because I wanted to have new inputs. So thank you for this. It's something I will definitely keep in mind. Just one thought is about the accuracy. I still would like to understand a bit deeper how accuracy is measured, how it went from 50% to 70%. So, and you don't need to answer now, but just raising the point. So when people tell me there's 97% accuracy, I shouldn't do it, but I say, okay, so it means that there's a 3% of probability that the answer will be given wrong. Well, with the deterministic approach, today, if we ask how much is 2 plus 2, GPT goes there to search if the answer has been given by someone. It's not calculating. So it's a totally different approach. And I don't know. I feel that we are going towards a direction where everything is flattening to the single vanilla flavor for everything. And I'm an Italian. I like taste, multiple taste. There are 15 different types of tomato for your pizza. So we really should. It's good to know about benchmarks. My message is always, let's try to remember who we are, because benchmark, and I will read about it because I really don't know anything about. But yeah, accuracy is worrying me, because I still believe that we should achieve 100% accuracy, and it seems unrealistic. So that's the bit that worries me a bit.
Yeah,
Thank you for
bear in mind that businesses still haven't managed 100% accuracy.
Yeah, I agree on that. So let's say that we are not starting with the best.
I think if one day we would really have correct data about the accuracy achieved by humans, we would be shocked at how abysmal these are. We are good at thinking that we are far better than we really are, psychologically speaking. We assume it has to be 100% because I assume I'm always 100%. No, you're not. Probably 50% at best.
I believe in perfect numbers. Now the client I'm working with, I deliver numbers that are perfect, and when they are different, they discover that SAP is wrong and my analysis is correct. That's the way I would like to see. I would like ChatGPT to learn how I make the choice. It's going to be very hard.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. That was a fantastic talk. Thank you, Francesco. I think, it definitely added a lot with all the back and forth discussion and the chat. I was going to step in and field questions to you, but you're answering them. So thank you very much for that. As a few of you have commented in the chat, these will be available on the recording of this session will be available on the YouTube channel in the next few days. And yeah, thank you again, and thanks everyone for coming.